The grocery store was warm and crowded while heavy snow fell outside. Everyone seemed to be in a hurry to get home before the storm became worse. I had almost reached the checkout when I noticed an elderly woman standing in front of me. Her hands trembled as she counted a handful of coins. The cashier looked at the register and sighed. "I'm sorry, ma'am. You're still short." The old woman quietly nodded and began putting back a loaf of bread, a carton of milk, and a small bag of rice. She looked embarrassed but didn't complain. Without thinking, I stepped forward. "I'll pay for everything." She slowly turned toward me. Her pale gray eyes seemed strangely bright, almost as if they belonged to someone much younger. "You have a kind heart," she whispered. "It's nothing," I replied with a smile. After we left the store, she gently touched my wrist. Her grip was surprisingly firm. "Listen carefully," she said in a low voice. "One day your husband will leave home for a single night. When that happens, do not clear the snow from your yard." I laughed nervously. "How do you know I'm married?" She only smiled. "Just remember what I said." Before I could ask another question, she walked away into the falling snow and disappeared between the white curtains of the storm. That evening I told my husband about the strange encounter. "You've been watching too many mystery movies," he joked. "She's probably just another fortune teller." I laughed with him, and within a few days I had almost forgotten the old woman's warning. A week later, my husband came home looking tired. "I have to leave tonight," he said. "An emergency meeting. I'll be back tomorrow morning." The words sent a chill through my body. Outside, snow was falling harder than ever. Within hours, our yard was completely covered. I grabbed the shovel and walked toward the front door. Then I stopped. The old woman's whisper echoed in my mind. "When your husband leaves for the night, don't clear the snow." It sounded ridiculous. Yet something deep inside me refused to ignore it. I placed the shovel back against the wall and locked the door. That night, I barely slept. Around 2 o'clock in the morning, I heard slow footsteps outside. Crunch. 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 Someone, or something, was walking through the snow around my house. I barely slept for the rest of the night. The footsteps continued for several minutes, circling the house at a slow, steady pace. Every time I looked through the window, I saw nothing but swirling snow and darkness. Just before sunrise, everything became silent. When daylight finally filled the yard, I opened the front door. My heart nearly stopped. Huge footprints stretched across the untouched snow. They came from the edge of the forest, crossed my yard, circled the house 3 times, and ended directly beneath my bedroom window. There were no footprints leading away. Whoever had come during the night had never left. Trying to stay calm, I followed the tracks. They were much larger than any human footprints, almost twice the size of my boots. The snow inside each print had melted slightly, even though the morning air was freezing. Then I noticed something else. Near the last footprint lay a small silver coin. It looked ancient, worn smooth by time, with strange symbols carved into both sides. I had never seen anything like it. As soon as I picked it up, an icy wind swept through the yard. A whisper drifted past my ear. "You should have never touched it." I spun around. No one was there. My hands began to shake. I hurried back inside, locked every door, and placed the coin on the kitchen table. Minutes later, my phone rang. It was my husband. "I'll be home in an hour," he said cheerfully. I almost told him everything but stopped myself. It sounded impossible. When he arrived, I showed him the footprints. He frowned. "They're gone." "What?" I looked outside. The snow was perfectly smooth. Not a single footprint remained. I ran to the table. The silver coin was gone too. "Are you feeling okay?" my husband asked, placing a hand on my shoulder. I wanted to answer. Instead, I noticed something behind him. On the hallway mirror, written in melting frost, were 6 chilling words. It knows you saw the footprints. I blinked. The message vanished. My husband stared at me with concern. What are you looking at? I realized he hadn't seen anything at all. I didn't tell my husband about the message on the mirror. How could I? He already thought I was imagining things. The rest of the day felt strangely normal. We had dinner, watched television, and tried to forget the storm. But every now and then, I caught myself staring out the window toward the snow-covered yard. Something felt wrong. That evening, the power suddenly went out. The entire house fell into darkness. My husband grabbed a flashlight and went to check the electrical panel in the garage. I'll be back in a minute, he called. I waited. 1 minute passed. Then 5. Then 10. He didn't return. I picked up another flashlight and stepped outside. Fresh snow had begun to fall again. The garage door was wide open. Inside, the flashlight lay on the floor. Still switched on. But my husband was gone. Pavel? I called. No answer. Then I noticed footprints leading away from the garage. Only one set. They were the same enormous footprints I had seen that morning. I followed them to the edge of the forest. Suddenly, they stopped. In the middle of the snow stood the old woman from the grocery store. She looked exactly the same, as if no time had passed. I warned you, she said quietly. Where is my husband? I cried. She looked into the forest. It isn't him they wanted. What do you mean? They came for you. A freezing wind rushed through the trees. Branches creaked above us. The old woman's face turned pale. Run, she whispered. Before I could move, a deep growl echoed through the darkness. Something massive stepped between the trees. 2 glowing eyes opened in the shadows. And they were staring directly at me. My legs refused to move. The glowing eyes remained fixed on me, unblinking. The creature was hidden behind the trees, but I could hear its heavy breathing. The old woman grabbed my arm. Don't look into its eyes, she whispered. Run. We rushed through the forest. Snow flew beneath our feet as the growling followed us from behind. It never seemed to get closer, yet it never fell behind. Finally, we reached a small abandoned cabin. The old woman slammed the door shut and drew a strange symbol on the wooden frame with her finger. The growling stopped. Silence. I struggled to catch my breath. What is happening? I asked. She looked at me sadly. Years ago, someone in your family made a promise. A promise? They accepted a gift when they had nothing. Wealth, safety, but every generation would owe a debt. I stared at her in disbelief. What debt? She looked directly into my eyes. On the first snowy night when a husband leaves home, the debt must be collected. My blood turned cold. My husband. He isn't dead, she said. It took him only to bring you here. A loud knock echoed through the cabin. 3 slow knocks. Then a voice. My husband's voice. It's me. Open the door. I rushed toward the handle. The old woman blocked my path. No. But it's him. She shook her head. If it were truly your husband. The voice came again, calm and familiar. Please. I'm freezing. Then it whispered something only my husband knew. The nickname he had called me since the day we met. Tears filled my eyes. The old woman closed hers. It has learned his voice. The handle slowly began to turn, by itself. The handle turned slowly. Once. Twice. Then the door creaked open by itself. A blast of icy wind rushed into the cabin, blowing out the candles. For a moment, everything was completely dark. When the old woman lit another candle, someone was standing in the doorway. It looked exactly like my husband. The same face. The same coat. The same tired smile. "I've been looking for you," he said softly. Every part of me wanted to run into his arms. But then I remembered something. He was holding his wedding ring on the wrong hand. My husband had always worn it on his left hand. This one wore it on the right. The old woman stepped forward. "You cannot enter unless she invites you." The smile disappeared. Its face remained the same, but its eyes slowly turned black. "I don't need an invitation for much longer," it whispered. The walls of the cabin began to crack. Snow drifted through the gaps as the temperature dropped. The creature took one step inside. The old woman reached into her pocket and pulled out another silver coin, the twin of the one I had found in the snow. "You must choose," she said, placing it in my hand. "Choose what?" "Keep the coin, and it will haunt you forever." "And if I give it back?" "You will forget this night." I looked at the creature. Then at the coin. Before I could decide, a familiar voice echoed from outside the cabin. This time it wasn't coming from the doorway. It came from deep within the forest. "Don't listen to it." It was my husband. The real one. Which meant the thing inside the cabin was never him. The creature smiled again. Slowly. Its body began to change into something that was no longer human. The creature's skin split apart like cracked ice. Its human face melted away, revealing a tall, shadow-like figure beneath. Long, thin arms reached almost to the floor, and glowing white eyes pierced the darkness. The cabin trembled. The old woman stood between us, gripping the silver coin. "It has shown its true form," she whispered. "Now it cannot lie." The creature let out a deep, echoing laugh. "The debt is overdue." Outside, my husband's voice came again. "I'm here. Follow my voice." The old woman grabbed my shoulder. "Do not run blindly. It can still trick you." Then she placed the coin into my palm. "Your kindness brought me peace. Now this choice belongs to you." The coin felt warm. Strange symbols began to glow across its surface. Memories flashed through my mind. I saw my grandfather standing in this very forest decades ago. A harsh winter. An empty house. Hungry children. Then the same shadow appeared before him. It offered food, warmth, and enough money to save the family. All it wanted was a promise. One soul from a future generation. My grandfather accepted. The vision vanished. Tears filled my eyes. "So this is all because of him?" "No," the old woman said gently. "Because fear makes people choose what they believe they must." The creature took another step. "The time is over." It stretched out its hand. "Come willingly, and no one else will suffer." I looked at the glowing coin. Then toward the forest, where my real husband was still calling my name. Finally, I made my decision. I threw the coin into the creature's outstretched hand. The symbols burst into brilliant white light. The creature screamed. The entire forest shook as the snow beneath our feet cracked open. For the first time, the shadow looked afraid. The creature's scream echoed through the forest like thunder. White light burst from the silver coin, spreading across its body in glowing lines. The shadows that covered its form began to peel away like burning paper. For the first time, it looked terrified. "No," it roared. The ground shook violently. Cracks raced beneath the snow in every direction, forming a giant circle around the cabin. Ancient symbols appeared within the ice, glowing brighter with every second. The old woman smiled. "It remembers." "What remembers?" I asked. "The forest." The creature tried to throw the coin away, but it was stuck to its hand. The light grew stronger. Suddenly, dozens of ghostly figures rose from the snow. Men. Women. Children. Generations of people. Some wore clothing from decades ago, others from centuries past. All of them had one thing in common. Each had been claimed by the same debt. The creature stepped backward. For the first time, it was no longer the hunter. It was the one being hunted. The spirits moved closer. "You belong to us," one whispered. "You lied," said another. "You stole. You fed on fear." The creature's eyes darted wildly around the circle. Then it pointed directly at me. "She carries the blood of the bargain." The spirits turned toward me. My heart nearly stopped. The old woman stepped beside me. "Blood is inherited," she said firmly. "But choices are not." The spirits became silent. A moment later, they nodded. One by one. The circle of light expanded. The creature screamed again as the shadows around it shattered. Then something impossible happened. The darkness peeled away completely. Inside stood an ordinary man. Thin. Frightened. Ancient. He looked more exhausted than evil. The old woman stared at him. "You were human once." The man lowered his head. "A very long time ago." The forest became silent. The snow stopped falling. And for the first time that night, I saw pity in the eyes of the spirits. But suddenly, a terrible cracking sound echoed beneath us. The glowing circle was breaking. Whatever prison had held the creature for centuries was collapsing. And something far older was beginning to wake beneath the frozen earth. The forest fell into complete silence. Not a single branch moved. Not a single bird sang. Then the ground split open. A wave of freezing air burst from the crack, carrying a sound unlike anything I had ever heard. It was not a roar or a scream. It sounded like hundreds of voices whispering at once. The ancient man dropped to his knees. "It has awakened." The old woman tightened her grip on my arm. "We must leave. Now." "But my husband. He is alive. If we stay, none of us will be." The crack widened, revealing a deep darkness below. No light could reach its bottom. From within, something enormous began to move. A single hand emerged. It was larger than the cabin, made of black ice covered with glowing symbols that looked older than any language. The spirits stepped back in fear. Even they were terrified. "What is it?" I whispered. The old woman answered without taking her eyes off the abyss. "It is the keeper." "The keeper of what?" "Every promise ever made in fear." The giant hand slowly closed around the ancient man. He did not resist. "I failed," he whispered. "I fed it for centuries." The keeper lifted him into the darkness. There was no scream. Only silence. Then the hand disappeared. For a moment, everything became still. I thought it was over. I was wrong. Two enormous glowing eyes opened inside the abyss. They were looking directly at me. A voice echoed across the forest. "You broke one bargain. Now another must be made." At that exact moment, I heard footsteps racing through the snow. My husband burst into the clearing. He threw his arms around me. "I found you." Before I could answer, the keeper spoke again. "One life. Or both." The crack beneath our feet began to widen. The ground continued to split apart beneath us. I grabbed my husband's hand as the edge of the crack crept closer. "What is happening?" he shouted. "There isn't time to explain." The keeper's glowing eyes watched us without blinking. Its voice echoed through the frozen forest. "Every bargain demands a price." The old woman stepped forward. "No." The keeper turned toward her. "The bloodline has fulfilled the debt. It ended when she chose kindness over fear," the old woman said. "The bargain is broken." For the first time, the keeper hesitated. The spirits gathered around us, forming a circle of light. Their faces were calm now. One by one, they reached toward the crack. A warm golden light flowed from their hands into the frozen earth. The symbols carved into the keeper's icy hand began to fade. It let out a deep, sorrowful cry. I have guarded fear for countless ages, it said. If fear no longer binds the promise, my task is over. The enormous hand slowly opened. The darkness inside the abyss began to dissolve. Sunlight pierced the storm clouds above. The snow stopped falling. The crack in the earth closed as if it had never existed. The spirits smiled. One after another, they faded into the morning light. The old woman looked at me with gentle eyes. You changed what generations believed could never change. Before I could thank her, she, too, disappeared. Only a single silver coin remained where she had stood. My husband picked it up. It's just an old coin, he said with a puzzled smile. I looked at the forest. To him, it was only an ordinary winter morning. He remembered getting lost during the storm. Nothing more. I slipped the coin into my pocket. As we walked home, I turned back one last time. The forest was quiet. Peaceful. Then, far beyond the trees, I thought I saw two faint glowing eyes. They blinked once and vanished.